This regular City of Medicine Hat Council meeting is called to order at 6:30 p.m. on May 15th, 2023. We will begin with a moment of prayer or reflection. Thank you. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. Are there any councillor announcements this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, adoption of the agenda. So we have on the agenda at 9.1, council review of refusal of tax incentive application 400-031223. It has come to my attention that it's possible that the applicant was not informed that the hearing was going forward, or the appeal was going forward today. So looking for council's input on whether we should defer it until we can get confirmation that the appellant has been informed. I will defer to City Solicitor Bullock, but the bylaw itself does not require the appellant to be given notice of the date, but it seems courteous. Councillor McGrogan?
Yeah, I support it. If we've came this far, we should hear from him, or that whoever the applicant is that responded. So I'd be in favor of tabling it till our next meeting.
Councillor Sharps?
I support tabling it as well. We're trying to be a very transparent council, and if we're saying that there's a appeal in front of us, then I think that's what we need to do and give them the right to be here.
Councillor Robbins?
I would make a motion that we table this to the next regular meeting of council.
Okay.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, can we get that up on the board, please? And we'll postpone, the motion is, can we say postpone until the June 1st? No, is it June 1st? June 5th, 2023 council meeting. Thank you, Rondi. Great. Is that consistent with your motion?
Did you say a different word than postpones though, Amanda? Adjourns? Or did
I
you say-
said postponed.
Oh, I said tabled. Oh, okay. No,
Oh, you said
postpones is good.
table,
No,
yeah.
then that's fine. Sorry.
Okay. There's a P missing, but we know what you mean. Okay, we'll vote on the motion. And the motion is passed unanimously, so that item will be removed from the agenda. Are there any other additions or objections to the agenda? Seeing none, we will adopt the agenda as amended for the corporate record. Next, we have adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council May 1st, 2023. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we'll adopt the minutes as presented for the corporate record. Next up, we have a presentation from our destination marketing organization. Jace Anderson, Executive Director of Tourism Medicine Hat, will be presenting the 2022 annual report. Welcome, Jace.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Administration, residents, and friends. On behalf of our industry-led volunteer board of directors and our small but mighty team at Tourism Medicine Hat, it's my absolute pleasure to share our report to the city for the 2022 year. I have given myself so many slides, and we have so few minutes. I'm going to talk quickly. We entered 2022 cautiously optimistic. The rebound is not complete, but we've covered more ground than we anticipated. Looking towards 2023, we see data that reflects much of what we believe we saw in 2022 as well. Research tells us that 76% of Albertans plan to travel this summer. 70% of those plan to travel within their home province of Alberta. 49% of those are reasonably familiar with Medicine Hat in Southeast Alberta as a leisure destination. And 35% of those stated a high likelihood of visiting Medicine Hat in Southeast Alberta this year. When asked, those respondents offered the following activities that they would enjoy: history, hiking, dark sky viewing, trails, food, and beverage. All things our community offers remarkably well, all elements of our brand pillars. Click. My notes say click. I have 5 pages in front of me for 5 minutes, and it's just telling me what to do while I stand in front of you. Nerves be darned. We exist to strengthen Medicine Hat's tourism profile through destination awareness. Our vision is to be that trusted partner. The DMO has been serving Medicine Hat since 2013 as the result of a grassroots industry movement, an effort the city was integrally engaged in. This work has led us to destination awareness efforts as well as strategic destination management. Simply said, we promote what is and we collaborate to develop and support what should be. A quick example of the work that we do. The river is a key part of our outdoor experience, which is a brand pillar. Early on in 2015, we launched Medicine Hat's Great Big Paddle. From humble beginnings, the event now sees hundreds of paddlers and kayakers on the river at any one time, residents and visitors. Organic authenticity that gives us a focal point for promoting our outdoor experience. There are now several local entrepreneurs who rent kayaks and canoes and paddle boards all summer long, and they're very busy. Conversion is when local business cash register rings. It's the sale of a product or service, direct economic impact. Local businesses do that, and they do that well. We insert ourselves further up in the funnel, so to speak. It's strategic. The more people who know we have a paddling community here in Medicine Hat, the more people connect, and we are passionate about who we are as Hatters and what we offer, the more the cash registers can ring. We don't track the cash register as a KPI, for example, but instead we promote the experience and who we are as a community. The cover of our 2022 guide, this is an example of us tracking and measuring leading indicators. We print 30,000 copies and in 2022 returned to distribution as far east as Manitoba, west to BC, and down into several northwestern United States. Demand for our guides in 2022 was higher than it had been since 2019. We were restocking several distribution locations in BC 3 and 4 times throughout the summer and fall. We saw 42 US states check in at our visitor center. That's up from 14 in 2021. So the long-haul US traffic is back. The digital version of our guide was read online over 60,000 times, which is a leading indicator of the awareness and consideration being generated. Coupled with website analytics, the tracking detail allows us to develop an understanding of who's reading, of what they're reading, and when. All that data, or KPIs, that help us to better succeed in our mission. In partnership with Travel Alberta, we set goals and targets. Then in 2022, we crushed them, unlike the 5-minute timer that's staring me down. Influencing hotel occupancy upward, check. We've surpassed industry segment and we surpassed our competitive set again. Partnering to sell hotel packages to be a part of those cash registers ringing, check. Fantastic success again in 2022. The rest of the words are unnecessary. Another example of our work is in noting one particular key business outcome that we strive for. Our efforts see an increase in attention from both urban markets in Alberta, Calgary, and Edmonton. This awareness and consideration effort continues to drive conversion for our partners and our stakeholders. Data tells us that Calgary and Edmonton visitors now spend the night almost 75% of the time they visit. In 2022, our hotel occupancy was very high. Campgrounds in our city and region were at or near full peak capacity. Golf packages are selling better than ever. Mountain bikers are prioritizing our region. Leading indicators serve for us as guardrails for our tactical marketing efforts. Data points that tell us what we are seeing and the success and growth related. Tourism development is economic development, and good economic development benefits the resident and the visitor alike. Our efforts influence pride of place, and your recent survey data shows that 95% of Medicine Hat rates overall quality of life as favorable. 91% would recommend Medicine Hat as a place to live. Those are wonderful numbers. An industry mentor of mine recently developed this message. You may have seen it in previous documents. In our work, I reflect on it often. When we build a place people want to visit, we build a place people want to live. Big life in a small city. That effort builds a place people want to work. That place becomes where we want to live and work, where business needs to be, which is a place people have to visit, rinse, repeat, and grow. Thank you for all that you do. I have one slide left and about 400 words. Should I stop there and save it for a question?
I'm okay with 400 more words, Jace.
Fantastic,
yes.
because I have more pages. Your continued investment into our city, as evidenced by Echodale, our growing trail network, et cetera, is incredibly valuable. Your long-standing engagement and support of our industry is noted through multiple RFPs and multiple extensions. The city continues to be our core funder, and we continue to leverage those funds near 2-to-1. We are nearing the end of the extension year, the 5th year of a 4-year contract. We look forward to securing tourism delivery continuity through 2024 and beyond. We're nearing 10 years as a society, and we believe that our work reflects a continued effort to be that trusted partner through collaboration within our community and our region. Next on our agenda is to sit down with our friends in administration and discuss what future plans will look like. I skipped a paragraph and a half, check watch. That is unfortunately 7 minutes, not 5. Thank you. I would welcome any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you. Councillor Knodel.
Thanks, Mayor Clark, through the chair to Mr. Anderson. I had the opportunity to sit down with Jace last week and drink coffee with him at a local cafe, and we discussed how I felt almost like a motherly protectiveness about the work that is done on behalf of Tourism Medicine Hat, because I don't want to see anything. It's not that I don't want to see change for the benefit of change, but I think if we can preserve the work that you're doing and make sure that you are empowered to continue being bold and brave as an organization and step into the future in the way that you have over the last 10 years, then we are setting the community up for success. And I think that we need to continue supporting you, and hopefully you get to keep doing the great work that you've done in the past for many years to come.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Your Worship, thank you. Mr. Anderson, thank you for coming again today, and I apologize for that 5-minute countdown. That would be nerve-wracking, but you did well. No, I appreciate you always coming forward and with the spunk that you have and the energy and the love for what you do and your organization's love for this city. It's evident. I was curious about the one thing, and then I have a question. The online hits or trends or whatever you're noticing there as far as tracking, you indicated that there's means to kind of create means to identify where those viewings are coming from, and are they repeat people or not? What, if you had to succinctly identify a couple of learnings or things that you identified from those analytics, what would it be?
Through the chair, the two things I think that would jump out for me first would be the core analytics that our web data is telling us about where these individuals reside and the sort of attention, where we're capturing attention and driving interest. And that's really rewarding because we're able to see an increase in that interest in the volume, particularly in the 2 urban centers, although they're just 2 of the 4 or 5 key markets that we focus on. The second data point that is new for us this year and really excites me is from a company out of the States, and it gives us access to trackable metrics. And so we're dealing with cell phone data and those sorts of things. And that's what gives us the insight to know that, for example, in 2020 and 2021, we were seeing 4 to 5 months of strong visitation from Edmonton. But in 2022, that number jumped to 8 strong months. Now, they define a strong month based on a particular percentage of traffic overall, et cetera, but it shows the overall trend as increasing, which as a team excites us because we've been spending some real intentional focus on that market in particular.
Thank you. Just supplementary. So I think I've asked you this in the past, but I'm going to ask you again, and you've actually typically responded to it quite well in your report. But as far as kind of a, I don't want to call it a tourism trend, that's pretty general, but kind of what now that we're kind of in a post-COVID, I guess officially we are now, environment, what's the new trend when it comes to tourism, or the attitudes or behaviors that locally or in a broader sect of society or the community? The other one is the next best thing, I call it J-style. What is the next best thing that you and your team are kind of looking at for Medicine Hat and tourism? I know you've been very responsive and nimble in creating all kinds of new things, like bringing the trolley here and coffee clubs and beer, tours. And I mean, it's those little things, and they kind of catch on. And like you said, they capture an imagination, and person by person, group by group, there's conversations happening. You talked about the kayaking. I mean, I've heard that. I've heard about the trail use, not just in general, but people coming here to utilize them and experience something different. So these are the things that I'm kind of referring to, not these, high in the sky things, but what's kind of the trend? What's happening from your perspective?
Through the chair, we're hearing data right now. We're post-COVID. I think that's an appropriate way to frame it. We're ahead of the curve. When we were mid-2021, we were anticipating that we would be at this stage by 2024. That's what Travel Alberta or Destination Canada data was suggesting. So to be there and to see it on the horizon this summer is very exciting. We're ahead of the curve. The reality is we're dealing with a number of other inputs and outputs that stress or strain our partners and our stakeholders. And one of the things that we're talking about right now at the provincial level is the reality behind recession or a recession scare and what that does to travelers. What we're reading is that that's likely going to cause the Albertan traveler that I was describing at the beginning of my presentation to change their patterns slightly. But that means they're going to spend perhaps more time in province. And one of the things we saw throughout COVID is that the destination awareness and consideration we generated while people were limiting themselves to travel within the province was a boost for us. And our community is stunning for all kinds of brand-centric reasons, so those people are going to come back. And so while they might be traveling less, we're potentially going to see more of them. We started last year cautiously optimistic. We started this year optimistic. The reality is this is going to be a busy summer in a lot of different levels, which is going to present challenges that perhaps are new for some of us in the community.
Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Councillor Hirsch.
Through the chair, thanks, Jace. Again, you and I have had many conversations in the past. I think what's interesting is you and your group have an innate understanding in terms of what is needed in terms of tourism, what you were able to bring to the table, unique ideas, focusing on a lot of the strengths of our community, et cetera. So that being said, so I want to celebrate that, but I also want to talk about what are some of the opportunities, challenges that you see for our market, and I mean that more relatively like Southeast Alberta, and I want to narrow the focus more on things that we can control. So we can't control weather, all that kind of stuff that would drive tourism for sure, but what is it that you have for this council to consider as far as opportunities that we can do to assist certainly a burgeoning industry, quite frankly. I know you and I chatted at a luncheon recently talking about it's the provincial government's mandate to kind of drive tourism dollars as well. So that being said, it is an industry that is, what's helpful is that it brings other people's dollars to our community. So anyway, just thinking about things that maybe council should consider as far as opportunities or something to consider.
Thank you. Through the chair, those of you who have been around the Horn for a couple of years will know that I had numerous times mentioned the need for an increased capacity for campsites. And so thank you as a city for making that increase, both in growing and strengthening Gas City, adding to Echo Dale, and allowing us the opportunity to invite and celebrate more local and visitation. The next one on that list for me, as much as I would love a boat in the river just moored off of City Hall where we could have lunch on the top, burgers on the bottom, that's a passion project we'll talk about some other time. The next one for us is going to be a hotel. Right, and that's a reality. I know we've had conversations in the city in the past, but there is a need for an increase to the available occupancy that we have for us to sustain and continue the growth that we have. Now, that's not the sort of thing that we around this Horn can fix in 3 months or 6, but it is a conversation that we're having with other levels of government. And it's a conversation that we're hoping that we can bring back to the table and discuss through, and to answer perhaps both of your questions at once. We're working with Travel Alberta and the Tourism Destination Development Zone work that's going to give us eyes on their perspective of what we should see and what we should focus on. And where that aligns with who we are authentically as a community is really where our songbook is going to sing.
Councillor Hyder.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. Thank you, Jace, for an awesome, very quick version of your presentation. I just wanted to give you a wonderful, the experience guide that you and your team created is phenomenal. I'm fortunate to have a hard copy that I keep at my at the Ronald McDonald House, and it's the people that, of course, stay with me aren't from Medicine Hat, so they are blown away by all these awesome highlights that are in that guide. So well done there. I will say this to anyone: you have a great vision for our community, and you know how to surround yourself with people that really care. And it was awesome to meet your board the other day, and job well done, Jace. Thank you.
Thank you, Jace. Where can people in our community see a copy of your experience guide?
As of right now, the print versions are available at the Visitor Information Center along the highway by the Samastipi. They're going to begin being shipped out to all points in Western Canada and northern states, but locals will begin to see them throughout the community as well.
Online at all?
Absolutely, online. Main page at tourismmedicinehat.com. I feel like you're prompting me through like a radio station. Mayor Clark, thank you. This is the part that I need. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions, I want to thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to all the amazing work that you guys do in the future.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item 10.1, Corporate Services Committee. I'm going to ask for the meeting highlights first. Councillor Dumanowski.
Your Worship, a couple of things to highlight. The supply chain annual report, I suppose to some people it sounds more exciting than, and less to others, but from the standpoint of procurement, accounts payable, inventory for a city like ours, it's a big deal and it's important, and there are a lot of opportunities to always look to become better, more efficient, and increase efficiencies and savings. And so a good, robust conversation about that with Tibor, manager of supply chain, and things are in good order there for sure. And we even touched on the pre-qualification bidding component. And then the other one is the corporate safety update. I mean, safety is front and center and paramount to any organization, and certainly we pride ourselves on doing the best we can, and the best we can is doing better every year. And so Mr. Wheeler from Corporate Safety Lead spoke to the city's vision for corporate safety, the foundations of our safety programs, and the culture, creating that culture. And what was interesting is he he went into some general conversations, but specific enough to talk about where we have a culture and a positive culture, or a culture that believes in safety, is one where if there are near misses, people report them. And so there's opportunities to learn from them, not fear of reprisal or otherwise, but a culture where people can be open about mistakes or vulnerabilities, and I think that's important. So overall, indicating again over the last 3 years, favorable progress report and improvement in our safety statistics and reporting. So those were the highlights of our meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council to Councillor Dumanowski? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the meeting minutes from the April 27th, 2023 Corporate Services Committee.
Okay, I move that council adopts the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting held on April 27, 2023, as presented for the corporate record.
I'll second that.
Seeing no speakers, we'll vote on the motion. That's unanimous. The remaining items under 10.1 are for information. So we'll move on to item 10.2, Public Services Committee. Councillor Robbins, do you have any meeting highlights you'd like to share with council from the meeting?
Yes, a couple. So the bulk of our meeting was spent talking with representatives of the Community Vibrancy Advisory Board, who were talking about the process that they underwent to work on the community vibrancy grant recommendations for council. So there was a considerable process involving score sheets and many hours of time. So just wanted to highlight that they provided us quite a bit of information at committee about that, and that probably took the bulk of the meeting. And then we had a number of very helpful updates, verbal updates from Managing Director Stout, some things that were ongoing, new information, or updates that were relevant at the time, which may have passed to be that relevant today. Irrigation, for example, was something that we talked about for a bit, but in any event, those were really the highlights of the meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Robbins? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Public Services Committee meeting minutes of May 8th, 2023.
I move that council adopts the minutes of the Public Services Committee meeting held on May 8th, 2023, as presented for the corporate record.
Second.
Seeing no speakers, we'll vote on the motion. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.2.3, Community Vibrancy Advisory Board Grant Recommendations.
I move that council accepts the 2023 Community Vibrancy Board grant funding as presented.
Second.
Okay.
All right, we have a mover and a seconder. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hirsch.
Well, I just want to send out thanks to all those involved in terms of the review and the process. I know there was a bit of a matrix that they follow. That said, I appreciate the efforts that people took as far as the hours of reviewing all the recommendations. So just a little hats off. Thank you.
City Manager Mitchell.
Through the chair, thank you. We would like feedback from the proponents that are applying to, because if there's something that we're doing that we could improve the clarity, we're more than happy to hear the feedback. So from the successful applicants and also the unsuccessful applicants, we're more than happy to listen to the feedback, and we look forward to that to improve the process for next time. Thank you.
Who should they get in touch with on that?
Director Prosecco.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no further speakers, we will vote on the motion to approve the 2023 Community Vibrancy Grant funding as presented. That's unanimous. The remaining items under 10.2 are for information. So we'll now move on to item 10.3, Municipal Planning Commission. Councillor Hirsch, are there any meeting highlights that you'd like to share?
Normally, Your Worship, we do have some MPC items that get decided at MPC, but all the items for consideration in the last meeting are actually in front of you tonight, so.
Okay, thank you. And we have the meeting minutes from May 10th, 2023 in our packages for information. We'll move on to item 10.3.3, bylaw 4771. And this item has a public hearing date scheduled for June 5th, 2023.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4771 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone the subject lands from Community Services District to Medium Density Residential District.
Second.
All right, first reading, so we'll vote on the motion. That's unanimous. Item 10.3.4, bylaw 4786. And this is also scheduled for public hearing on June 5th, 2023.
Thanks, Your Worship. At this time, I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4786 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone the subject lands from Community Services District to Medium Density Residential District.
Second.
Okay, we'll vote on first reading. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.3.5, bylaw 4788. This also has a scheduled public hearing date of June 5th, 2023.
Thanks, Your Worship. At this time, I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4788 to amend the land use bylaw to rezone the subject lands from open space district to mixed use district.
Second.
Okay, we'll vote on that motion. Sorry, first reading. And that's unanimous. Before we conclude, I have received confirmation that the applicant was given proper notice. So if we would like to add that item back onto the agenda, we can do that. So does anyone object to adding that item back on? I would love a motion.
Your Worship, at this time, I'd like to move the tabled motion that was recently enacted tonight and bring it back onto the table.
I'll second it.
Thank you. We'll vote. That is unanimous. So we will begin the hearing. If the applicant is present and wants to present, they are welcome to come down. Okay. In light of the applicant not being in attendance, the city clerk will read out the letter that, the appeal letter.
Okay, on page 66 of your packet, we received a letter from the appellant dated March 13th from numbered company 2156564, Alberta Ltd. It's addressed to Mayor and City Council. We are longstanding home and small business owners in the great city and already seeing positive changes. We're reaching out to you regarding bylaw 4667, tax incentive bylaw. We're in the process of putting together a very exciting redevelopment of an existing property in Medicine Hat. Address is 1156 27th Street Southeast, which is a former bowling alley. I've attached to this letter our Invest Medicine Hat application, ID number 400-031223, as well as other supporting documentation, including concept drawings. The purpose of this letter is to request an exemption at the CAO's discretion to Section 3.2B. We presently meet all other criteria with the exception of these two: the capital cost of $10 million or greater for non-residential, non-brownfield, and maintain 10 or more full-time skilled jobs. We have a signed offer to purchase this property and are presently working to remove conditions. We completed a preliminary meeting with Planning and Development, and they didn't foresee any issues with the project as proposed. Over half of the building is already pre-leased. Additionally, we have the senior leasing officer from Procurement Canada viewing the property this April. We passed the EOI stage and will enter the tender process for federal government office of approximately 3,900 square feet. They have not yet disclosed what federal office this would be. Given the early stages of this project, we do not have a development permit. Our projected capital costs for renovations and energy-efficient upgrades are as follows: $1 million base building renovation, $400,000 primary tenant leasehold improvement, and work with tenants for future leasehold improvements in addition of 6,000 square feet. The building is presently operating as a not-for-profit organization, Global Prayer House. If our project proceeds, this would change the status of this location, thereby generating additional tax revenue for the City of Medicine Hat. This will be one of the largest projects our small company has undertaken. The current financial environment, coupled with the bank's low appetite for risk, makes this a very expensive project. We wish to request the maximum available tax incentive, 5 years under the aforementioned program. Thank you for all that you do for our great city. If you have any questions or require any further information, certainly feel free to contact me. It is signed by Nathan Parkinson.
Thank you. We'll now give administration an opportunity to put forward their reasons for rejecting the application.
Hello, through the chair. The applicants applied under the non-resident part of the incentive program. The non-resident part of the incentive program says that the capital needs to be 10 million and it needs to encompass 10 good jobs, which I believe means permanent jobs. The proponents their capital request is 2 million, and the jobs, after exploring this with them through a conversation, were construction jobs, not necessarily permanent jobs. So our feeling is, through administration, that they do not meet the requirements of the incentive bylaw, specifically the non-resident. Thank you.
All right, we will now open it up for debate, having heard from the applicant through his letter and administration. Councillor Robbins.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't, the applicant will ever hear this, that I appreciated the efforts made to provide this information to us, and it was detailed information and an exciting project to be sure. I think the issue for me is that we're restricted by the parameters of the bylaw that we made, and if we wanted to change that, to change the incentive amounts, then we would need to give city staff direction and have a new bylaw drafted, and we have not asked them to do that. So unfortunately, I think that really limits what we can do to assist in this matter.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Your Worship, similar to Councillor Robbins, I appreciate that there are opportunities coming forward. People are looking to invest and make improvements. But the integrity of the tax incentive bylaw is really before us. And I mean, the litmus test is perhaps put upon us in more difficult fashion if the investments and the jobs are closer to what the spirit of the, not only the spirit, the legality of the tax incentive bylaw indicates, and they're not near that, unfortunately. So we certainly wish them well, at least I do, and I hope that they can still pursue this project. But at this time, obviously, from my perspective, we would not be able to meet that, and so I do support the decision made by staff.
I'd agree with the comments of both Councillor Dumanowski and Councillor Robbins. I did want to ask, though, I know the brownfield incentive has a much lower threshold of projected to cause the assessed value of the property by at least 25,000, and approved development must at the time of application have an estimated capital cost of only $1 million or greater. I'm just wondering if that was explored with the applicant.
Through the chair, it was. It's my understanding that it was. Staff have gone home. So my recollection is that it was explored, and this was the best avenue to apply under.
Okay, thank you. And I will need a motion. Oh, Councillor Knodel?
Thanks, Mayor Clark. Through the chair, likely to city manager. I'm curious, being that we are trying to, I understand there's limitations to this particular incentive, but if we're trying, this particular organization is going to turn a nonprofit space into a profitable space. They're undoubtedly going to offer jobs to the community, maybe not 10, maybe they're not hitting the requirements. Is there, so as Mayor Clark asked, we have explored other incentives, but there was nothing left to offer this particular group. I'm just wondering if there was anything left to encourage or promote the work that's being done, because it's still valuable, and I want to make sure that they are seen and heard for their work.
City Manager Mitchell?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Knodel. The incentive program is fairly new to the city, and we have achieved a lot of learnings through the process and understood a bit more where the pinch points are. So as you know, we've opened up the incentives, redistributed the funding and opened up the incentives today, and they've almost been fully subscribed, which is great. But we've also started talking about what are we going to do next to bring forward to council. And knowing this, it will help us. Where was the program oversubscribed? Where were we missing the mark? So that this is a relatively new program. It isn't perfect, but we learned a lot in the first iteration of it to find out where we can get better. We have encouraged them to continue to try and apply. The incentive that was opened yesterday, I don't believe met their conditions, but we are letting people know that we will have more of this coming forward. So that's the best we could do.
Follow up quick through Mayor Clark to City Manager. I appreciate that. I think I would love to hear more about what we as an organization can do for business in Medicine Hat, because it seems that I don't think that they're forgotten, but I think that there's more that we could do to encourage and make Medicine Hat a place where more people want to do business. So thank you.
Councillor Hirsch?
I appreciate the comments in regards to, always kind of looking at refinements. And I guess when I take a step back and pause on this application, I won't support it because the tenets have been missed. But it does open an understanding and a thought in my mind in regards to developers that develop on spec. So think about buildings that are developed 4 bays, not really assigned yet, but yet still in an attractive neighborhood that probably wants to have the local hairdresser, the 7, like the convenience store, et cetera, et cetera. But in some ways, so it'd be still non-residential, but in some ways we miss the mark for those individuals that want to take a chance, that sees an opportunity. And I'm just, maybe as a takeaway, think about that in regards to some of the refinements, because I get the fact that they don't, in the first blush, as a spec development, can't state how many jobs will be created, but ultimately those bays will be filled with that, whether it be, I don't know, maybe home-based businesses that now finally find enough business to have a storefront, that sort of stuff. So, you know, I'm a big champion of small business, and I just want to make sure that what we're targeting hits the right notes. So that's just kind of my reflection here in regards to this application. Thank you.
If I may, Councillor Sharps, just on that point, I think my understanding of the two streams, the brownfield incentive and the non-residential incentive, the non-residential, I think, was intended to be more industry, larger commercial. I think the brownfield incentive was more to help de-risk on the infill, which this would be, so maybe that's the one we need to take a look at a little bit more.
Well, are we considering new development areas in the analogy I was giving? Is that considered brownfield? That would be considered greenfield.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood your point. Yeah,
I'm just trying to make sure any loopholes that are out there as far as refinements are kind of taken a look at. So
thank
thanks.
you. Councillor Sharps.
Thank you, through the chair. So can't support this either. It just doesn't meet the requirements of the bylaw, but that does bother me. I'm wondering if we go from 0 to 10 million. I'm pretty sure there's some lower levels that we could look at. Not all of us can put 10 million in, but the couple of us that, you know, when we're doing even 500,000 in improvements, and you add a couple of jobs, I just think there's more that we can do from 0 to 1 million or 10 million. So I'm not sure if that's a notice of motion or just a request for administration to come back with additional categories to this bylaw, much to what Councillor Hirsch said. But it's not all brownfield, it's not all greenfield, right?
City Manager Mitchell, do you have an anticipated timeframe for when we might see the next iteration of incentives?
Yes, Q3 is my hope. But the other piece too, just to keep in mind, and I know everybody around the horseshoe realizes this and recognizes it, the incentives is one piece, but the other piece is how are we doing planning, how are we doing development, is our planning documents, do they meet the needs for infill and all those types of things. So it's a more holistic approach, and because incentives are being picked up by different municipalities, we should really look at all the other municipalities, talk to them, what's working, what's not working, where did you find growth, et cetera. But remembering that this is a small piece in our larger planning and development piece.
Councillor Van Dyke, I apologize to put you on the spot like this. Is that currently on the outstanding items list for ELSPD?
It is not currently on the list, but I believe it's on the, it was a budgeted item as an item coming forward during this year. So it's not on the outstanding items list, but it's part of the work plan for that division.
Perhaps we nonetheless could add it to the outstanding items list that we're expecting the incentive plan recommendations for Q3. Is that a motion that anyone would like to make? Well, actually, we should decide on the appeal and then we can, sorry, got sidetracked there. Okay, seeing no further speakers, we will look for a motion on the appeal.
Worship, I move that council confirms the decision of the CAO to refuse non-residential tax incentive application 4000-031223.
I will second that.
All right. We will, thank you. Thank you, Randy. So we'll vote on the motion to confirm the decision of the CAO to refuse non-residential tax incentive application 400-031223. That's unanimous. Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Will the appellant be communicated with about the possibility of future opportunities?
City Manager Mitchell is nodding. Okay. And can I get a motion to add the recommendations?
I just wanted to So if it's already in budget and we already have it communicated by city manager, I don't know if a motion's necessary. I think the job action's coming, so.
I think it's more about the timeline and to keep it on the radar of an outstanding item list so it doesn't, so we're expecting it in Q3, the timing wise.
I'm okay as it is.
Councillor Van Dyke?
Sorry, I was having button issues there. Yes, through the chair, is it possible just to make a note of it? Does it require a motion?
As chair, you can refer it to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you
I'll
for
just
doing
refer
that.
it. Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.